love them this way. Or when they act like this, we're supposed to love them that way. You know, it's kind of a guessing game sometimes when you love people, when you have to love people. Because sometimes they need a hug and sometimes they need a punch in the stomach. And both can be equally loving, but they don't come with a guidebook. But what's cool about loving God is God comes with a guidebook. God tells us how to love him, which is really nice. So think about something God did for you personally, like, you know, maybe he got you a car, you know, something besides just, you know, eternal life and, you know, being blessed for eternity. You know, maybe he got us a job here, or maybe he got us, I don't know, the right puppy or something. Just, God really loves us, and he's taking care of every single one of us in this room, which is great. And, you know, in appreciation, we can love him. And so we're going to look at how to love God. He tells us, John 14. John 14. 14:15. If you love me, keep my commandments. It's pretty straightforward. If you love God, keep his commandments. So, there we go. There's his, and then he gave us stuff about his commandments, stuff about him. You know, how to love him. A lot easier sometimes than loving people. But let's look at something that God tells us to do. Let's go to John 13. Love God? Listen to him. Well, this is something he wants us to do. And he brings this topic up all the time. So, 13:34 says, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples if you have love one to another." Yeah, God wants us to love. And this is a new commandment. Jesus is like, hey, a new commandment. It's not just, you know, love thy neighbor as thyself. This new commandment is love like Christ loved, which is, you know, a little bit harder sometimes. And it's not just a suggestion. God tells us that. And he tells us over and over to love one another. And if we obey, what's cool about this one is if we obey God, we're also going to be really happy. We're going to be joyful. So not only do we show God we love him by obeying him, we also get blessed in the action of doing it too. So in John 15, we'll look at this in more detail, because it says it better than I am saying it. And I'm going to read it from the New Living Translation, because sometimes the King James confuses me. So I need a different Bible. So, John 15, we're going to start in verse 7. "But if you remain in me, and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want, and it will be granted. When you produce much fruit, you are my true disciples. This brings great glory to God. I have loved you, even as our Father has loved me. Remain in my love." There's a lot of words with love in this section. "When you obey my commandments," that obedience again, "you remain in my love." Here we go. You want to obey God? Remain in love. "Just as I have obeyed my Father's commandments and remain in his love. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in love." He's trying to make a point, saying the same thing over and over again. "I have told you these things so that you will be filled with joy. Yes, your joy will overflow." So he's telling us, obey God, live in love, and your joy is going to overflow. So we get joyful if we listen to God. And verse 12 says, "This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you." It's interesting, there's that, we talk about loving people like Christ, which is really, really hard sometimes. Because sometimes it's just a pain in the butt to love people. And there isn't a lot written down of Jesus' teachings. Like if there's the one verse that says if every person was a scribe and everybody sat there and they wrote down stuff, there's not enough paper to fill what Jesus did. But God recorded specific sermons that Jesus said, and so those are really important because he didn't record everything that Jesus said. And Jesus keeps repeating this over and over again. You know, this is a commandment, love one he had love written down. And we just read 3 times, Jesus says, keep this commandment, to love each other. Let's keep reading in verse 17. Oh no, we were in verse 13. All right, we'll start in 12. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you. There's no greater love to lie down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confine his slaves. Now you are my friends since I have told you everything the Father has told me. You get to be Jesus' friends. Side note. That's cool. Okay, 16. You didn't choose me, I chose you. I appointed you to go and produce lasting fruit so that the Father will give you whatever you ask for in my name. This is my command. Love each other. So there we go. If you haven't gotten the point, you're supposed to love each other. And loving people, like I mentioned earlier, can be challenging. And sometimes it's just hard. But I'm sure it wasn't like a piece of cake for Jesus to lay down his life and to go through all that torture. I'm sure there was a little bit of uncomfortableness, pain. But he did it because he loved us. And we can come up with amazing justifications for not loving each other. We're really good at justifying our actions. So let's look at Luke 10. There's this guy who's trying to justify his actions to Jesus. And, Jesus, just, handles it wonderfully. Luke 10. 10:23. And then he turned to his disciples and said privately. So he's talking to his disciples. He's not just talking to a bunch of random people. Blessed are the eyes which see the things you see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see what you see and have not seen it, and to hear what you hear and have not heard it. Then a certain lawyer, it's an expert in the law. I'm using the New King James. And a certain person of the law stood up and tested him, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit life? And Jesus said to him, what's written in the law? You're an expert in the law. What's written in the law? What is your reading of it? And he replies in 27, So he answered and said, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said, You have answered rightly. Do this and you will live. 29, but he, wanting to justify himself, asked him, who's my neighbor? Then Jesus answered and said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now, by chance, a certain priest came down the road. So we've got our good religious leaders coming down the road, and sees them, and goes ahead and crosses on the other side. Likewise, a Levi, those guys are the top echelon of the priesthood here. They're supposed to be, the men of God. And when he arrives at this place where this guy's half dead, he comes by and also passes on the other side. I don't see him. That's what they're doing. But then a certain Samaritan, as he journeys, came where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. So this Samaritan was walking, doing his thing, going somewhere, sees this guy, and then has to change his plans. He has to stop what he's doing. He comes over, he takes care of him, he plays nurse, he bandages his wounds by pulling oil and wine on there. So like antiseptic and I don't know. Painkiller, yeah, I don't know. So he takes care of him. He sets him on his own animal, so he uses some effort, some strength, gets him on his animal, takes him to an inn, and then comes back and he pays for this guy to stay here, and then he comes back the next day to see if he's incurred any other bills so far at the end and pays for that too. So this guy, he took time out of his day, he used his own money, and he put forth effort, and it was, might have been an inconvenience to him too. So this is the example that Jesus gives this guy. So there's time, effort, money, and inconvenience that this guy does to take care of this person. And in verse 36, Jesus says, "Which of these three do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves?" And he said, "He who showed mercy on him." And Jesus said, "Go and do likewise." So Jesus is saying, go and love people, take care of them. And yes, sometimes you have to change your plans and it's a big inconvenience. And sometimes you have to spend time. And sometimes you have to spend money and effort. But this is the example that Jesus gave them. I think it's cool to note that at the beginning of this chapter, Jesus had sent 70 people out to kind of to preach the gospel. The purpose is get people born again and things. And that's another example of doing something that God wants us to do that takes time, money, and effort, which is telling people about Christ. Sometimes it takes extra things. Another interesting thing that I thought was kind of cool is that Jesus doesn't start this parable with saying, this is a parable or this is a story. So there's a potential that maybe this is actually a real story. I mean, who knows, but I think it's kind of cool if maybe this was a real story about a Samaritan. I mean, I don't know. But, since we're talking about loving people practically and kind of what it looks like, let's go to 1 Corinthians 13. We'll read the list of what love looks like.
Love punches people in the stomach.
Hey, sometimes
I'm pretty sure that's in here.
New translation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a New King James Version.
Yeah.
Love to hurt some
Yeah.
person.
Just gotta know when to get it right.
That's right. Hey, Jesus yelled at people. Since we're talking about love people, I said that already. All right, chapter 13. We're starting verse 4. Think about, as we're reading this, think about the time, the effort, and the inconvenience sometimes that goes into loving people and how that we are just kind of called to do that with things. So 13:4, love suffers long, which sometimes it is suffering to love people, and is kind. Love doesn't envy. Love doesn't parade itself. It's not puffed up. Does not behave rudely. Does not seek its own. Is not provoked, and thinks no evil. Does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth. Verse 7, bears all things or covers all things, is another translation. Believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. Love is really important, and God talks about it and brings it up a lot. How much he loves us, how we're to love other people. And that's kind of just an example of what it takes to love people, because it's not easy. If we go to Matthew 11. Okay, Matthew 11. Think of a time where, you were in a situation where it was really hard to love somebody, but you managed to do it. In 11:30, it says that, we'll do verse 29. Verse 28. Okay, 28, Jesus is talking. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my burden is easy, and for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And this has to do with loving people, because sometimes sometimes it's a labor and you get heavy loaded just trying to love people. But Jesus says, for my yoke is easy. That word easy is only translated easy that one time. It's not the kind of easy like we think of, like, I'm hungry, it's going to be easy for me to go get a Philly cheesesteak sandwich from next door because I don't have to think about it, and then it's easy, It's not that kind good. So what it's saying is my yoke is kind, my yoke is better, my yoke is manageable, and my burden is light. You know, he gave us a manageable thing to obey, to love each other. And sometimes that's hard, but he said that we can manage it. We can do things. And I found a great way to make it easy to love people, and that's 2 Thessalonians. Because the cool thing about life is that we don't have to do anything without God. He's always there helping us. So, if we find ourselves in a situation where we're having a hard time loving people, we can pray this prayer. 2 Thessalonians 3:5. Now may the Lord direct your hearts into the love of God and into the patience of Christ. So we can pray this prayer. God, direct my heart to the love of you, the love of God, and into the patience that Christ had. You know, God tells us how to love him in his book by obeying him. One of his commandments is to love each other. So to show that we love God, we have to be nice, love each other. And that looks different all the time. But that's not what I'm talking about today. And then it's going to, it'll help us. It'll make us joyful loving people the way God tells us to love. And he can help show us how to love people. So let's all show God that we love him by loving each other. Even when it's really, really hard. So, I'll pray. Father, thank you so much for being a great God and for having a guidebook for our lives so that we can just know what it means to show our appreciation to you and what it is, and that you can just continue to direct all